Hello and welcome to the second video of the online third-person shooter. So in the previous video we made a few changes in the animation and moving speed, and in this video we're gonna set up the aiming system. So to start, I am going to create a folder, name it scripts, and inside this folder let's create a script and name it Camera Manager. Right now, if you take a look, we have a Cinemachine virtual camera, and let me actually bring it here and duplicate this, and I'm gonna name this Aim Camera. So if we take a look at the first camera and let's go to the game view, inside body, we can change the camera side and even shoulder offset. So first let's disable the aim camera, and I'm gonna put the priority on something like 15. The priority should be more than the follow camera. Let me rename this to follow camera. So I'm gonna bring it here, and now let's enable the aim camera, and I'm also bring it here and decrease the camera distance, maybe to 1.5, and let's change the X to something like this. Maybe bring it up a little bit. So I think this is pretty good for the aim. So I'm going to create an empty game object, name it Camera Manager. So let's attach this script and open this up. First I'm going to say using Cinemachine. Now I am going to create a variable of type Cinemachine virtual camera, name it player camera, and another one, name it aiming camera. We're also going to get the Cinemachine brain. Also, let's get a reference to the camera itself. Now I am going to create a singleton for our camera manager, and here I'm going to create a public static camera manager singleton. When I get the value of the singleton, I'm going to assign the value of the singleton by saying find object of type camera manager, and then I'm going to return the singleton. In the newer versions of Unity, find object of type is deprecated, so we could just use find the first object by type. Now let's add a getter to our player camera by saying public static Cinemachine virtual camera player camera, and we're gonna get it by returning singleton player camera. We're gonna do the same thing for the aiming camera and also add a getter for the main camera. Also, let's add a default sensitivity. So by default, let's say 1.5, and another float, call it aiming sensitivity. Let's also add a getter for the default sensitivity. We can simply say public static float default sensitivity, and by getting it, we're gonna return singleton.default sensitivity. And the same thing for the aiming sensitivity. So we have these variables. Let's also add an aim layer down here. It's going to be of type layer mask. And now let's add a bunch of private variables as well. I'm going to add a boolean called aiming, and I'm going to add a getter and setter for aiming. And I'm going to create a vector 3, call it aim target point. And let's add a getter for aim target point. We are setting it inside this script, so we are only add a getter for it. Now the first thing we're going to do in the awake function, I am going to set the camera brain default blend.mTime to 0.1. So that's the time between the camera's transition. And here in the update function, I am going to set the aiming camera GameObject set active based on the value of the aiming. So if the aiming is true, we're going to activate the aiming camera. And if the aiming is false, we're gonna deactivate the aiming camera. And because the aiming camera priority is higher than player camera, we don't need to enable and disable the player camera. That's always on. But when this gets on, because it has higher priority, it is going to render the scene. Now let's also create another function down here. I'm gonna call it set aim target. Now to assign the value of this aim target, we're gonna cast a ray from the center of the screen, and if it does hit anything, we're gonna set that point as aim target. So to do that, I'm gonna create a ray. It's gonna be equal to camera, which is the main camera, screen point to ray, and we're going to pass the screen width divided by 2 and screen height divided by 2. Now, to do the raycast, we're going to say if physics, and we're going to pass the ray, and the maximum distance that we want the ray to go is 1000. And we're going to pass the aim layer that we created up here. We're going to assign that later in the inspector. So basically, if it hits anything, we're going to say aim target point, the variable, equals to hit.point. Now let's add an else, just in case it doesn't hit anything. In that case, we're going to just assign the aim target to a point on the ray, and the point is going to be at the distance of 1000. Now inside the update function, I am going to set the aim target. Now to visualize this, we could create the onGizmos function, and I'm going to put it inside if Unity editor, so it only runs if we are in the Unity editor. And on draw gizmos, we're going to set the color of the gizmos to red, and we're going to draw a sphere using the aim target point, and let's choose 0.1 as the radius. Now let's save this. Now if we go to the Unity editor, and if we select the camera manager, we need to assign these values. So for the first one is gonna be the main camera. This is gonna be aim camera. The follow camera we're gonna choose as the player camera, and the camera brain is also on the main camera. If we take a look at this main camera, you see that that's just the Unity camera, and that's the Cinemachine brain. So also in the camera manager, let's choose default as the aim layer. Now if I play this, and if we go to the scene and bring it maybe somewhere here, you see as I look around, there is a red sphere right there indicating where the camera is looking at. That's our aim target. So let me stop this. Now let's hook the third person controller and our camera manager. So I'm going to open my third person controller script, and let's get down to the awake function. Here you see that it's gonna get the main camera by finding GameObject with tag. Instead of this, we could simply just use the camera manager by saying main camera equals to camera manager main camera.GameObject. Also, there is this Cinemachine camera target, which if we open our scene, you see that on our aim camera, here on the follow, this player camera root, and the same thing on our follow camera. If we take a look, this is the camera target, which if we take a look at the third person controller, here, this is Cinemachine camera target. So this is the game object that the camera is looking at. So because we're gonna use Netcode later to instantiate our network players, the players are not gonna exist within our scene. They're gonna be instantiated. So we want to be able to assign the follow target of our camera using our code. So to do that, I'm gonna go to my third person controller, and inside my awake function, I'm gonna say camera manager player camera mfollow, which is the follow target, equals to Cinemachine camera target. So we're gonna assign the follow target of our player camera. We're gonna do that for aim camera as well. So that's our aim camera. Later, when we are doing the networking, we might want to return if this is not the local player. So only local player is gonna mess with the camera. Now to control aiming, let's create a boolean for it. We're gonna call it private bool aiming. Let's assign the value of our aiming inside the update function. So here we're gonna say aiming equals to input.aim. Let's actually do another variable, name it sprinting. Let's assign the value here. I'm just gonna use that, saying sprinting equals to input.sprint. So one of these things needs to override the other one. Either you could override the aiming by sprinting or sprinting by aiming. So I'm gonna override sprinting, saying if we have input.sprint, then we're gonna sprinting, but I'm gonna add an additional condition saying that aiming should be false. So if we are aiming, the sprint is not gonna work. You could do the reverse. You could say if we are sprinting, you cannot aim. That's up to you. You could do it however you want. Now after this, let's say here, I'm gonna say camera manager singleton aiming equals to aiming value here. And let's copy the sprinting. Here when we check for the sprint input, I'm gonna change this to sprinting. And here we are going to set the value of our animator aimed parameter by saying if we are aiming, set it to 1, otherwise set it to 0. Now let's save this and go back to the Unity editor. Here in the animator, I'm gonna go to the layers. I'm gonna create a new layer. Let's name it second layer or anything you want. And here I am going to create a folder, name it animation. So here inside this, I'm gonna create an avatar mask. Let's just name it upper body. And I am going to assign the value of the mask on my second layer to upper body. Let's also check IK pass for both of these. And inside the second layer, I am going to drag my aiming idle animation. As you can see here, this is the animation. It's just aiming. So let's drag it here. And let's go to the upper body on the humanoid. Let me click here, disable all of that and choose only upper body. So this only affects the upper body. So we're gonna change this layer weight through the code. Let's go to the script, and here I'm going to create another variable, name it aim layer weight. And while we're here, let's also create a boolean called reloading. We're gonna create the reloading boolean for now, but we're gonna do the actual reloading mechanics in the next video. For now, let's just add the variable. And to set the value of the aim layer weight, let's go to the update function. So here it is. Around here, I'm going to say aim layer weight equals to mathf lerp. So we're gonna lerp from aim layer weight itself towards something. Let's just say 0 for now. And we're gonna do it as, let's say 10 for now, as the speed multiplied by time.delta time. For the target of the lerp, we're gonna say if we are aiming or if we are reloading, because we're gonna do the reload animation on the second layer as well. We're gonna put the reload animation right here. So if any of these two conditions is true, we're gonna put the question mark, then we're gonna pass 1 as the weight of this layer. Otherwise, we're just gonna pass 0. So aim layer weight is constantly going to change between 1 and 0 based on the value of these variables. If both of these are false, then we don't need the aim layer to have any weight over our animation. Now here we say animator.set layer weight, and we're going to pass the weight for layer 1. This is the index of the layer. So if we take a look, this is the layer index 0. This is layer index 1. So we need to pass 1. So, and for the weight, we're going to pass aim layer weight. Now we want to rotate towards the aim target if we are aiming. To do that, I'm just going to create a new function right here, name it rotate, and we're going to check to see if we are aiming. In that case, we're going to get the aim target point, put it inside this variable, and we're going to set the y of the aim target to the same level of our transform to get the correct direction. And to get the direction, we're going to say aim target minus transform.position, and we're going to normalize it. And here we're going to lerp the transform.forward from transform.forward towards aim direction. And we need a speed for lerping this forward. So let's go ahead and create a variable up there. I'm just going to create it right here. And let's name it aim rotation speed. So that's it. Let's get back down to our rotate function and say aim rotation speed multiplied by time.delta time. So we're gonna call our rotate function right here after move inside the update function. Now let's go to the move function. There is also something we need to check here in the move function. If we take a look here, you see that transform.rotation is going to be changed here. So basically it's going to rotate to face input direction relative to the camera position. So normally this is okay, but we want this to happen only if we are not aiming, because we just wrote the code for when we are aiming here in the rotate when we are aiming. So let me copy that and bring it back to the move. Here we're gonna add the condition right here, and I'm gonna say when aiming equals to false only, then do this. So I'm gonna cut it and bring it here. So if we go to the Unity editor now and let me play the game, you see that if I hold my right mouse button, it's gonna go to aiming, and it's gonna keep the rotation towards the aim point, and this is the normal, this is aiming. So let's also fix the animations. If we take a look at the scene here, when I aim, it's still gonna play the running forward animation, but we don't want that. We want to play different animation based on the direction of the move. So let's do that. I'm gonna go to the animator. Here in the parameters, I'm gonna create a float, and let's name it the speed X, and another one speed Y. We already have a speed for normal condition, but we're gonna add these two for when we are aiming. So if I go to my base layer here inside our idle walk and run blend, you see that here this is gonna be based on armed. By the way, this is for rifle. For example, you could add another motion field for pistol, launcher, and other weapons. So for the rifle armed, we're gonna come here. This is gonna be based on aimed value. And if we are not aimed, that's it. But if we are aimed, now this comes to play. We're gonna go to 2D, and the first one is gonna be speed X and a speed Y. Now let's add the motion fields. The first one, I'm gonna choose aiming idle. So that's it. Now we're gonna add another one for walking forward, aimed walking forward. So the X is gonna be 0. The Y is gonna be +1. So that's it. This is 0, +1. And for walking left, it's going to be -1 as X and 0 as Y. So that's going to be walking left right here. I have the animation for it. And this is going to be for 1, 0. So that's walking right. Let's bring it here. Here it is. Walking right. And walking backward, which is going to be 0, -1 for Y. We have walk backward. Here it is. So as I mentioned, here in the normal situation, you see that for idle is 0, for walk is 1, run 2, and sprint 3. So here is the same thing. For walking we choose 1, and for running we choose 2. We don't have sprint while we are aiming. So this is going to be 0 for running forward while aiming, and this is going to be +2. So that's going to be running forward. So to do that, let's drag it here. And the same thing for running left is going to be -2, 0. That's running left. And let's add another motion field, 0, -2 for running backwards. So here it is, running backwards. And the last one is running right, which is gonna be positive 2 and 0. That's it. So let's drag the animation for running right. So I showed you the animation on the Miximo, the packages for it in the last video. For example, let's take a look. This is walking forward, and this is, for example, running right. This is the animations. You can download them from Miximo. So that's pretty much it. Now the animation of our character while aiming is going to be determined based on the value of X and Y, speed X and speed Y. Now all we need to do is to assign the value of speed X and speed Y in the script. So let's go to the third person character controller script. Now for the values of speed X and speed Y, let's create a variable up here. I'm gonna name it aimed moving animations input. Now let's assign the value of this variable here in the update function. We are going to do it after the speed animation multiplier is set. So when this value is set, we're gonna do it right here. And we're gonna say aimed moving animations input. We're gonna lerp it from itself. So for now, I'm just gonna use input.move.normalize. So basically this is the WASD keys for moving. Later on, we're gonna change this, but for now, let's just use input move. When we normalize it, it is going to be a value between 0 and 1. So we're gonna multiply it by speed animation multiplier. So after that, we need to determine a speed for it. So if we take a look at the move function, you see that here there is this variable called speed change rate. So we're just going to use this speed change rate. We're not going to create a new variable. If we go to the definition, you see it's here. Up here, speed change rate is equals to 10. So I'm going to use that as a speed. So let's go back to our lerp. I'm going to say speed change rate multiplied by time dot delta time. So that's it for our input. And after this, all we have to do is say animator set float speed X. We're gonna set it to X of this variable, and we're gonna do the same thing for Y. So if I save this, and if I go to the Unity editor and let's play this, now we should get the proper animations when we are moving while we are aiming. So if we take a look at the animator, in order to play those animations, we need to be aiming, but also we need to be armed. So to get those animations, first I'm going to select the player, check armed. So we are armed now. And if I aim and move, it's going to play the animation based on the moving direction. I'm gonna finish the video right here. In the next video, we're gonna make the weapon look exactly at the point that we're aiming. Also, we're gonna rotate the upper body, and we're also going to put the left hand of our character on the weapon's grip. We might also do the reloading in the next video, but I think this is enough for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.